use explicit violence in your writings?
It's what I do, is one answer. I write horror fiction. There is a kind of curiosity that we have as human beings about our life processes. One of our last life processes is death. It's a legitimate subject for curiosity. We shouldn't be ashamed that the macabre or the morbid exercises some fascination upon us. I tell it like it is. If it's there in my mind's eye, I put it on the page. And that seems to me to be a legitimate way to write.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us here on the Written in Red. That's the Horror Reader and Writers podcast. And boy, do we have a doozy for you today. Oh yeah.
Real doozy.
This is a legendary show because we have one of the more tenured voices in splatterpunk and extreme horror that we're going to be interviewing today. We're going to talk a little bit about that and our experiences at Scares That Care and some huge news from Carver Pike as well. But first, before we get into this intro, before we do our interview, let's just introduce ourselves. Again, my name's Aaron Beauregard. I'm a 3-time Splatterpunk Award nominated author of such books as The Slob. Modern Hysteria is my newest release in Nightmare Nirvana. And I'm going to be launching a horror store directly for my readers. That's AB Horror, just like my initials, abhorror.com. It's going to have all kinds of merchandise, signed copies, and even apparel. Daniel?
Hey everybody, Daniel J. Volpe. I'm the 2-time Splatterpunk Award nominated author of Talia and Left to You. My newest book, Only Psychos, is out now and available on Amazon. And my next book coming out will be a dual short story collection that I did with Patrick C. Harrison III from Death's Head Press, and that's going to be Visceral 2. You're not going to want to miss that one. And Aaron actually did a really nice introduction for that book as well, so you guys will check that out. I'm going to be launching an online store, a couple of them as well. So follow me on social media for all the updates on that, and it'll be coming probably shortly after this airs.
Yeah, before you pass it to Roland real quick, I just want to say, yeah, Visceral 2 was awesome. I read the advanced copy of it and wrote the foreword for it, and great job. I think people are going to be really excited when they get a chance to dig into that fucking thing. It's a sick book. I feel less human having read it.
Good.
But I will say also that Patrick Harrison III, we're planning on having him on before the launch of the book as well. So just a little side note, something to look forward to.
Absolutely. All right, Roland, go ahead.
Roland Garcia Jr., author of Unfortunate, winner of the 2020 American Fiction Awards. Also author of Payback as a Witch, Pre-Thanksgiving Stress Disorder. And then we have our new chatbot, I won't call it a chatbot, but Exits, which I have a story called The Devil Baby of Bourbon Street. Carver Pike.
Hold on, real quick about Exits before you do your thing. If anybody wants Exits, it's not available on Amazon. You have to go to the Splatterpunk magazine. If you contact Jack Bantry on Facebook, you'll be able to find the link there. All right, go ahead, Carver.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. Take it away, please. Take it away.
Carver Pike, 2-time Splatterpunk Award nominated author of Diablo Snuff series, Slaughterbox, The Maddening. Those 2 were nominated. And can I say it now? Can I announce?
Do it.
I think you can.
Please do.
Do it.
Faces of Beth is finally out. The ebook is actually live now. I don't know when this is actually going to air, but the ebook is live now. So probably I'm assuming the paperback will be live too by the time anybody sees this episode. So Faces of Beth is actually live. I'm super excited about that. The book is live. The introduction was written by Brian Keene, and he teased some of it on Twitter, and it was awesome. I mean, the stuff he mentioned all the guys here that are with us right now on Written in Red, and just the stuff that he said about all of this. I mean, it really brought tears to my eyes, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, I actually had to stop what I was doing when I read his introduction and really just kind of took it all in, man, because if any doubts I've ever had about whether I belong and stuff in the horror world and any of that imposter syndrome that sets in and stuff like that. I mean, just things he had to say in there just really was touching and stuff, and I can't wait for people to read it. He is just such a class act, and it's just amazing. You guys have to read it. And it is at the beginning of the book. It's the introduction to the book. He called me fucking Motorhead. That was awesome. So, it was fucking awesome. So yes, it's the introduction to Faces of Beth. It's up there already, ebook and paperback. Can I read the blurb real quick?
Yeah, please.
I've been just saying it's kind of a possession story, but I did post the blurb online with the cover and stuff. But let me read the blurb because I haven't actually done that here on the show. But hold on. All right. When Andrew meets Beth at the Miles Bend State Mental Hospital, he knows she has issues. She checked herself into the place because of her problems, but he can't help falling in love with her anyway. He's willing to put up with her constant mood swings and all the baggage she brings into the relationship. He'll help raise her kids, give her siblings a place to stay, and even look after her creepy grandfather. After all, he has the space in the huge house left to him by his parents. Marriage has its hardships, Andrew knows that, but there seems to be something else wrong with Beth. A dark entity grows inside her, and he can't help wondering if she might be possessed. Andrew can look past all the other drama in their new life, but the thing inside her that seems to want him dead, that's kind of a deal breaker. That's the blurb for Faces of Beth. So
Yeah.
I still can't say because I don't give too much away. It's a really hard book to say much about. So I really want people to go into it kind of fresh. So the cover and the blurb kind of give enough about it away. So
Absolutely.
But,
so happy for you, man. It sounds like it's gonna be an awesome one. And I know that you've personally felt very strongly about this book, which is a good sign, and especially with your doubts being evaporated recently, it's a good thing, and I'm very happy for you, and you deserve it. You've been doing this longer than any of us, and you really do deserve it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited about it being a standalone too, because I just came off the Maddening, which was tough being the final book in the series, and it's really hard to sell the last book in the series, especially being the fifth book in the series,
Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've been able to just sell a fucking standalone and just say, this is the only book you have to read. Just read this one,
Yeah.
So,
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's so, I mean, today we're gonna, we will be having a full recap episode about Scares That Care, because that's pretty much where Brian offered to do that forward for you, right? It was sort of at that event.
Well, no, it was at KillerCon, really, because we first started talking at KillerCon, and he offered to do that for me.
Yes.
He let me mention it. When somebody like Brian Keene offers to do that for you, you're scared to say anything, because you're I don't want to, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I don't want to say it too soon and have, what if he doesn't even like the story and he decides he doesn't want to do it, So we talked at Scares That Care, and I said, hey, I haven't told anyone other than you guys about it, and I haven't really mentioned it at all. Nobody knows. All I've said is, I've been very vague about why I haven't released Faces of Beth. So I've just been telling people it's still in the editing process and stuff like that. I haven't really told anyone why I haven't released it. It's been ready. And I told him that, and he was like, "No, man, just put it." He's like, "Tell them I have it. Blame it on me. Tell them I'm a slowpoke or whatever. Tell them I have it." He was like, "Just blame it on me, that I'm the reason why it's held up." So he was really cool about it. And the funny thing is, he's not the reason it was held up. I didn't even get it to him until right before Scares the Care, mostly because I was kind of a chicken shit. I was actually, I wanted to make sure it was absolutely fucking perfect before I put it in his hands. So, I made sure a lot of people read through it, and it was as good as it could be, and then got it to him. And then, he actually wound up working on it fairly quickly. So, but he was so cool about it. He was like, no, tell people, mention it. I don't care. Just, So, which is really cool because, and then
totally.
that's it. once we talked about it, it was like, yeah, no, it wasn't like a secret at all. So he was cool about it.
Yes, I mean, we all built like a lot of relationships, I think, at that Scares That Care, and there's like, including with each other, meeting each other in person all together.
Yeah.
I know me and Dan had met, but for the four of us to have meet all at the same time was magical, and
That was amazing.
we have to definitely do a full episode on that. We just, we wanted to not detract from our current guest, though, Ryan Harding, who we're going to be interviewing in just a short time, because he is a legend of the genre, over a decade, just one of the better known names and an awesome writer. And we're really excited to talk more with him. But we definitely do have to have a follow-up episode, especially while it's still kind of fresh in our heads.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of memorable things that happened, during the convention, after the convention. Some things, like Aaron said, some relationships were made outside of the show, in the restaurant and the bar area. Some talks were had, and deals were made, and it was just fun. It was great to see so many of the readers. Like, shouts out to fucking Books of Horror. Like, the Books of Horror people came out in force.
Huge.
Legitimate. RJ Rolls, one of the admins and founders of Books of Horror, was there. Fucking awesome guy. I just read one of his books that I got from him. Excellent. So if you guys haven't read RJ's stuff, check his stuff out now. And if you're not on Books of Horror on Facebook, you need to correct that immediately. It's one of the most it's one of like a family type group. Like, some of these Facebook groups are really poisonous. Books of Horror is not. There's very, very few fights or anything like that. There's nobody ever bashing anything. It's just a genuinely good group. And again, I think that's in part to the admins keeping the trolls out, because on this show, we don't fucking feed trolls. And in Books of Horror, they don't feed trolls.
They don't put up with any shit in there, man. As soon as somebody goes in, as soon as somebody attacks somebody in that group or starts an argument or just comes at somebody, they just take them out. They're just like, nope.
And Books of Horror is not just for the readers, too, guys. It's for the writers. Like, recently, Brian Keene joined Books of Horror. Mary San Giovanni joined Books of Horror. Jay Wilburn's in Books of Horror now. Ryan Harding, I believe, is in Books of Horror. Lucas Mangum.
Christopher Golden joined Books of Horror, too, not too long
Christopher
ago.
Golden. I mean, these are legendary writers in the horror genre that are in this group. So there should be no reason why you guys aren't in it. But I digress. Scares was great.
Yes.
And I can't wait to do the episode and just talk about it. We don't have any pictures of Aaron and I's room. I'm still dealing with the insurance company for the damages, but they will be billed to Aaron's house directly.
Just picture a gerbil cage.
Yes.
That will give you an accurate portrayal of it.
Y'all use
Like
gerbils?
A gerbil.
You filthy, filthy boys.
Yo,
A gerbil
Richard Gere
cage
status.
that, like, a gerbil had like diarrhea or something like that. Like,
Oh,
that's
jeez.
very, very, very gross.
But yeah, a full episode definitely coming up in the near future on this, on this, as well as some other really cool guests, some that we're super excited to talk about, but we're not quite ready to announce yet. But before we get into the interview, real quick, just maybe like 30 seconds to 1 minute, each of us. What was an awesome moment from Scares That Care? I just want to kind of get that for the intro real quick. What do you got, Roland? You got one awesome moment that comes to mind?
Well, it's not just one awesome moment, but just meeting all the fans. I can't believe I even have fans, but like people like Donna and Steph, and just as many people came up, Allie and Candace. So I think that was a highlight for it for me, was meeting all the fans, and they just seemed so supportive and encouraging. So I took that away, and I'm gonna carry that with me for the next months. What about you, Carver?
Well, aside from meeting like Brian and Mary and them, and obviously all the authors and stuff, it was nice to connect finally with the horror writers, West Virginia group. I missed out on meeting them when I got sick for the Halloween thing that I was supposed to. So it was nice to actually meet up with all of them, and like Jeff Strand and stuff, the ones that I didn't get a chance to meet because of that. So I actually got to go sit down at the bar, like you were saying, with RJ Rolls and Jeremy McGargy, and I got to meet Bridget and stuff like that. All the people that I should have met a long time ago. So
Nice.
It was nice.
Dan, you got a moment?
Yep. I think one of the most memorable things. I mean, obviously, like Carver said, meeting some of the bigger names is great, but I think the night we had dinner, Aaron.
You don't have to talk about that moment, like when you came out of the shower and we locked eyes. You don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, and like that, the towel just dropped. But actually, it got hung.
But then,
it
just yeah.
Right? Like
it hovered.
It looked like a elephant snout. It was laid over, you know.
You were trying to feed it peanuts. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know where the peanuts came from, but anyway, I'm running out of time. No, Aaron and I had dinner. I think it was Friday night, maybe it was Saturday night, with Wes Southard, Wiley Young, Chris Triana, his dog Bear, and Stephen Kozanowski. That was a great time. Like, we just hung out, you know, ate food, shot the shit, and it just felt like we belonged there with these guys who have been around for years doing this stuff, you know, and they really welcomed us in, and it was a really good networking moment for us.
Nice. And what about you, Aaron?
Yeah, everybody was super welcoming. And like I said, we're going to have a whole episode because there's too many moments to actually say, oh, and none of them are better than the others. Like, that dinner was super awesome. And, like, you know, I think we kind of felt like, you know, I've always felt like a real writer, but like actually like being amongst so many other writers and having dialogues, you know, like it just felt like this authenticity to it. And, you know, everybody, like you said, Daniel, everybody was so welcoming. It was incredible. Yeah. I guess if I had to pick one thing that just comes to mind, I really enjoyed seeing some of the other people read, like particularly Jeff Strand and his performance. I thought I just learned a lot from sort of watching that. Like Wes had a real good reading too. You know, like people were kind of like, oh, how are they going to follow Wes's reading? And then Jeff came out and somehow took it to another level. And it was just
that was awesome.
Even some of the guys just telling stories on that panel too. It was just cool to see how they approach it. Guys that have been doing it for a while. And, you know, you can learn from that. And it's sort of an aha moment, which is really cool. So, but we got tons of that stuff to talk about when we do our Scares They Care recap, hopefully very soon. But what do you guys say? Do you think it's time to get on to the interview?
Yes.
You guys will, unfortunately, you guys aren't going to see my beautiful face to this interview. I'm gonna shut my camera off so we can give Ryan his spotlight, but I'll be there in spirit and in audio. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sure Aaron will put a beautiful picture of me up there. Maybe one from the hotel room. Maybe one of that towel. I don't know. Roland has all those pictures.
I do.
Either way, even if they can't see you, you'll be there in their heart. You know?
I am. I'm inside you.
All right, guys. Well, without further ado, let's get to the written in red special guest, the legendary Ryan Harding. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Written in Red. That is the Horror Reader and Writers podcast. And as promised, we are graced with the legendary presence of Splatterpunk and extreme horror writer Ryan Harding. He's a 3-time winner of the Splatterpunk Award. That's correct? I got that right, Ryan?
Yes, correct.
3-time winner. He has some, I think, Genital Grinder. We kind of talked about in our group this week that just came up on the 10-year anniversary. So congratulations there. And he's just worked with.
I lived 10 years after its publication.
And also Ryan's worked with some incredible collaborators, including Ed Lee, and actually Lucas Mangum was on the show just a couple weeks ago. So that's really nice to get you guys close together. But we just want to start by thanking you for coming on the show with us. We're all big fans, and a lot of the listeners here are as well. And but there are some too that are excited to learn about someone new as well. Some of the questions came in about your work and suggestions around sort of where to begin. So we're going to talk about that very soon, though, and get to some questions. But Usually we just like to open up with just sort of learning a little bit about your career, if you don't mind. Just, how do you get started? We know that you've been published for 10 years, but I mean, I imagine your story is fascinating, especially as you sort of have worked with some legends like Ed Lee. And I remember, reading, I think it was the foreword to Genital Grinder when we spotlighted you a few weeks back. And I think if there was some stuff that he had written there about your heavy metal lyrics that you used to write, and that you had showed him some of that stuff really before you got into writing. But I'll let you take it. But we're just excited to hear what you.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. It's really cool to be asked to be on your show. I really enjoyed the interview you guys did with Lucas, and then Daniel said, well, why don't you come on to this? So I was happy to be invited on. Well, I've been writing stories since like 5th grade. They weren't quite as bad as they became, but yeah, that's where I started, and started getting into horror around then too, reading a lot of Stephen King and Clive Barker and other stuff I was probably a little too young for. I read Easton Ellis in like 8th grade. So that was an early introduction to American Psycho. I guess my first real publishing credit was on the HorrorNet website. I had a short story on there. And HorrorNet was when I first started communicating with Edward Lee. He posted, I guess he got in contact when I made a post about liking his work a lot, and his characterization and like everything that went into that. At the time, I guess he mostly had books out through Zebra, like Creakers and The Coven, and I'd read a few others like besides that. But wasn't long after that he started doing his hardcore horror through Necro Publications. And so I guess around 1996 is when I got in contact with him, and just over the years I would send him excerpts of lyrics I'd written, or maybe a story that I'd done or something like that. And he was always really encouraging. Ed's just a great guy, bar none. He's always been a pleasure to know and helped me out a lot over the years, and obviously eventually asking me to finish Header 3 for him, which was a pretty mind-blowing moment. To say the least, because Header is just like a legendary novella in this subgenre that we're in here, and it was cool to share the drill with him on that. But 1999 is when I wrote the first story that was later published in Genital Grinder. It was called Damaged Goods. It was the beginning of Vaughn and Gregg. It was very much influenced by Dickie and Balls from the Edward Lee books, The Big Head. So that's kind of where that came from. And his book with John Peelin called Shifters was kind of an awakening for me, that you came to a gross out, you were really going to have to go all out. It couldn't just be simple evisceration or something like that. You really have to go all out, because I mean, they had this insane scene with somebody getting mutilated with a pizza cutter, and just really over the top, and something I'd never really seen before. So after that I was like, okay, I have to step my game up here. And so that's kind of how Damaged Goods came about. And there was an online tournament a couple years later that Delirium did, so that's where the Genital Grinder 2 story came. I did Genital Grinder in 2000 for the Denver World Horror Gross Out, and so Genital Grinder 2 was the online tournament. And there were a few other stories I did over the years. So from 1999 to 2003, that's the stories that became Genital Grinder. I worked in the years after that. There weren't many credits. I was accepted in layman's terms, anthology that Cemetery Dance was doing. But there was a long delay for that getting published. It was like 10 years almost, I think, before that came out. And there was another anthology I was going to be in called Family Plots that Sharing Needles was supposed to be published in, and then that was another publisher that folded before it could come out. So it was a dry few years, and I think people kind of thought maybe I stopped writing, which wasn't true. I was still doing. I was actually working on something with Jason Taverner, even way back then. He's my collaborator on Reincarnage and Reincursion, the slasher homages. But eventually, Brian Keene told me that Jeff Burke from Deadeye had told Brian that he wanted to do a collection of my work, because he had read Excitable Boys, which is where Genital Grinder, the first story, was published. Freak Press put that out. Kelly Lehman and Jeremy Lassen edited that. But so that's how I got involved with Dead-Eyed, and put those stories together and revised them and kind of interconnected them all, kind of sort of like Bret Easton Ellis's The Informers, which was a big influence on me. And after that, I started kind of going back to conventions again, getting back in contact with people, and setting up a lot of these collaborations that you were talking about. So that's kind of how things have gone. And there've been more books since Genital Grinder, of course. So a little slow, but in the past couple of years, a lot of stuff has come out all at once, kind of a perfect or imperfect storm.
Definitely, yeah. I've noticed a lot of work like sort of flooding out under your name. And yeah, I was kind of one of those people too that was wondering a little bit, you know, like, because I had, you know, always been, you know, definitely a fan. And I think it's interesting to me how many collaborations that you've done. I thought, like, we were fortunate enough to kind of be on that virtual KillerCon last year and see some of your panels. And you had an awesome panel. I think you were on the collaborations panel, right? Along with a few other people. And, you know, I had noticed that it seems like in a lot of your work, you find a common voice with people. Is that something that you find to be difficult to do? What is the secret to your success? Because I've just seen so many different collaborations with you.
It just depends. I mean, Lucas and I just sort of it seemed like we had a good match for what we did, even though our styles are fairly different. But I don't know. Nobody's really said, man, this really seems like you can totally tell it was written by multiple people. But I don't know. It just kind of worked out, and I don't think we did a lot of editing to make it that way. Whereas Chris and I with the Night Stalkers, there was a lot of editing, because Chris really wanted to make sure it felt like there was a uniform voice to that one. Header 3, Lee had done that first, 70% of the book, and I just came in and did the last part, and I tried to make what I wrote a bit more like him than, my usual style. But, I think there was one review where somebody said you could totally tell Lee didn't write all of it, and he said he quit around chapter whatever, and by that point it was still Lee, so I felt okay about it.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Carver.
Go ahead. No, I was going to ask one of the reader questions, so go ahead.
Yeah, but actually, before we do that, we're going to go into reader questions in just a second, but I would like to know, what were your wins for Splatterpunk? I just wanted to know that. Okay.
The first win was for Best Novella with Lee for Header 3. That was pretty much all his doing. I was just adapting a screenplay that he had wrote, so, even a lot of the dialogue in there was his. But that was the first one. The second one, Best Short Story for The Secreter, which was in Splatterpunk Forever. Jack Bantry and Kid Power edited. And then the second one was Best Short Story for Angel Bait, which was in the Big Book of Blasphemy, edited by Regina Garza Mitchell and Dave Barnett. Rest in peace.
I think you got to get a round of applause, man.
Yeah, man. Congratulations,
dude. That's badass, man.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah,
be quiet talking about that shit. That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, that's great too, especially working with Jack. Like the four of us just worked with Jack, and he's been nothing but a pleasure to work with. So it's great to see that, you had a story that was in one of his editions that, brought home some fucking hardware. Jack's a great guy. Actually, I have his copy of a lesson in renegade filmmaking sitting here. I was reading it earlier that he and Robert Essig did, that little blue chat book. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. I have their collection, and I still have to read it, but Robert lives pretty close to me. I haven't met him though.
Yeah, I know he's down there, and actually Chuck Buda's down there as well, because I listened to the podcast he's on, the Mondo Method. He's always talking about, I guess he hangs out with Robert Essig now, so you have to sneak up on him, jump them both in the dark alley.
Yeah, I'm sure Robert goes to a bookstore that I like a lot, so maybe someday I'll just run into him there.
That'd be cool.
You say you started writing in like fifth grade? Is that it?
Yeah, I started reading adult horror in 5th grade. I started with Friday the 13th novelizations.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the Simon Hawke stuff. Yeah, I remember some kid trying to get me in trouble for it, but
What a fucking loser.
yeah, it's like Ryan's reading a book where people make love and get killed. He literally said make love. I thought that was the fucking lamest
Oh
thing
my
ever.
god.
Nobody's making love on Friday the 13th. Get the fuck out of here.
Sensual love in a tent.
Fucking
Yeah.
Battlefield.
But yeah, the following summer from 5th grade, then I moved on to Stephen King because the horror movies used to really freak me out, but I wanted to at least experience Pet Sematary, so I thought, well, I can probably read the book and it won't be as intense as watching the movie. So that was kind of my theory there.
How'd that work out?
Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, at the time, the movie definitely freaked me out some, but it wasn't long before I came pretty desensitized to a lot of things.
Can you remember what like one of your earliest stories that you've written was? Like, what was your very first shot at writing?
Some of the earliest stories, they were like just writing about classmates and like putting them in this scenario where they're like Freddy and Jason and Leatherface and all these people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
The little shithead that told on you.
yeah. So that was
with the girls at my job because I can kill them all off.
Roland, you gotta stop talking about work. One of these
Yeah.
days,
I
we're
don't
gonna
give a
listen to
fuck.
the show.
Somebody's gonna tune in. You're gonna be fucked.
I
You're
don't
gonna be
care.
Man.
We're gonna see rolling on the streets.
Right? With a little cup.
so the earliest stories were like that, and then eventually I stopped using other people's killers and was trying to make my own. There were a lot of slasher stories that always I intended to be like novels, but they'd last about 20 pages, and then it was on to the next one.
Nice.
And you said you read some of the Friday the 13th novelizations. Did you ever read any of the Kelly O'Rourke Halloween ones by any chance? Like those teen slasher ones almost?
Oh, those, no, I didn't even know about those until a few years ago. I read, I think Mother's Day. I may have read that Friday the 13th one. I have not seen any of the Halloween young adults though.
Okay. So I was just curious.
I think I read those. I remember reading the novelization of the movie when I was a kid because I remember not being able to get up when the bell rings. I had a fucking hard on. I had to cover it with my Trapper Keeper.
Nice. What kind of Trapper Keeper do you have? One with a fish?
I don't know, man. It was a folder of some sort. I'm just saying, it was probably Trapper Keeper. But
All that love making in those books.
But not just the novelization. I do remember the young adult ones you're talking about. I didn't remember who the author was, but yeah.
Carver, if we can find that, will you do a live reading for us in the next show? Because I want to hear you talk about making love on the show.
I no longer do live readings after KillerCon when I fucking almost had a heart attack and fainted.
Oh, I wish you'd come to do the reading with Aaron and I. You should have been in there with us. It was a good time.
Well, we definitely got a lot of questions from listeners, so I guess we can kick that off then. But thanks for the kind of the history, Ryan. That was awesome.
Sure.
So Donna Latham and Kane Lambert asked, like, for someone who's not familiar with your work, what book would you have them start out with?
I'll probably refer people to Transcendental Mutilation the most when that comes out in a few months. That's my next collections, the follow-up to Genital Grinder. But for the books that are out right now, Pandemonium is pretty safe, I think. It's extremely gory, but not to the point where it's probably going to totally run somebody off right out the gate. Genital Grinder might be a bit too much for people up front, but I guess it just depends on what they're looking for. If they want the just craziest, most gory, over the top, and deviant stuff, then I might say, yeah, go ahead with Genital Grinder.
I will say that, and you know this because I'm a fucking fanboy about it, but I love Pandemonium, and I think that if you wouldn't mind, I just want to read the opening line of Pandemonium. I think it's it really sets the fucking stage for the entire rest of the book with just the almost like the sheer hilarity of the, like you said, the over the topness of the kills. But the opening line is, "Someone on the bus smelled like salami left in the sun," which is just fucking poetic. And now I want to ask you, which one of you two came up with that line? Was it you or Lucas? If you don't want to say, you don't have to.
That was Lucas. He wrote the beginning of the book, and then I took over, a few chapters in.
All right, yeah, he's a fucking gentleman. That guy apparently knows what sun-baked salami smells like. So thank you, Lucas, for that epic poetic line to open one of the greatest books out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Lucas. We kind of worked out in the beginning. Well, let's do maybe about 3,000 words each or whatever, and pass it back till we get comfortable with it. And then Lucas was like, "Yeah, here you go." I wound up doing about 6,000 or 7,000 words. And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess that's how it's going to be." But I mean, it was hard to stop on that book, because I mean, it was a lot of fun to write, and it was the fastest thing I've written in years for sure.
Yeah, when you're on fire like that, you can't stop it. So
I could tell reading it that you guys probably wrote it with a very feverish pace, just because the action was almost nonstop. Like obviously you guys built up the beginning with a little bit of foreshadowing and whatnot, and you kind of know it's by reading the back jacket and seeing the cover, but all hell's gonna break loose. I mean, the fucking title's Pandemonium,
Right.
But once it gets going, it's like red line the entire way. So I could definitely feel that pace that you guys had writing this book.
Yeah, it turned into pure chaos. We were pretty happy with how it turned out, and we, like I said, I've said before, kept up with the kill count just out of curiosity to see, and there were like 120 something on-page kills.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, when the Crimson Executioner gets in there, it turns fucking wet real quick in there. Gets real bad. All right, let me see what we got. All right, so this guy, Wesley Southard. You may have heard of him before. He wants to know, he asks, "How dare you?" That's his question. How dare you? And what do you have as a rebuttal for Mr. Wesley Southard for his question?
Well, I mean, there's just no line I can't cross. You know what I mean? It's if I think of it, it's got to be done.
There you go, Wes. I hope you're happy. You got the answer.
I hope you're not, Wes. I hope you're unhappy.
Yeah, Wes.
Let's see. So I have a question also. I have to take my glasses off because. So Don Keat wants to know, when you're writing, what's more important, the characters or the plot, or just a combination of both for you?
The point of view, I guess, winds up dictating the plot a lot of times. Trying to get into somebody's mind and come up with the obsession that I'm going to write about, because I tend to write about really obsessive characters. And once I get a feel for them, sometimes that'll kind of help me figure out where the story is going if I don't already know. Mm-hmm. And it also helps me kind of put in like some of the more literary things, symbols and motifs in there that kind of fortify those thematic structures that might be going on in it. So the story is important, but I would say just the character, the point of view ends up being the most important thing, because if I'm not feeling that, then it doesn't matter what the story might be. I'm probably just not going to be invested enough to see it through to the end.
Makes sense. Who goes next? Aaron, you got
all right, so we actually kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe you could elaborate. Kristopher Grindstaff asks, you've written several collaborations. What is your process when collaborating, and how does it vary to your solo writing process?
Well, when it comes to the collaborations, it's finding a comfort zone with whomever. If I know them really well, it's pretty easy. Jason Taverner and I have known each other a couple decades, so it's all second nature. We know how we're going to do it. There's usually not a point where we feel like, well, we need to only write a couple thousand words and hand it back and forth, until we feel like, okay, it's safe to just kind of leave it in the other person's hands for an extended time. We're pretty comfortable with it now. But with Chris Triana, when we did the Night Stalkers, it was a little more gradual to get the comfort zone, because we're friends. We don't know each other real well, but well enough to get started. And we wrote out some character sketches in the beginning and kind of came up with a couple of things that we wanted to happen while still leaving things mostly open-ended, so that we could kind of figure that out as we went along and hope that there would be some surprises in there, which, you know, there were. When we first started, there wasn't anything about I'll say something about a tree house. that wasn't planned at the beginning, and that's something that we put in later on. And eventually we got to where we would hand it off for much longer periods, and then there would be an editing process once we handed it off to the other person to make it feel more like both people writing as one voice. And like I said, with Lucas, it was supposed to start off kind of gradual, but it just immediately began with like 5 and 10,000 word handoffs.
So I have a question about the collaboration thing. How does it work? Will somebody pitch an idea to you? Do you come up with the initial idea? Are you approached by a publisher and they say, "Hey, I'd like you guys to write something for me," or is it kind of just like an organic kind of thing where you guys see each other at a convention and you're like, "Hey, let's start bullshitting," and "Hey, this would be fun to write about. What do you think about it?" Like, how did it work for any of these instances?
Okay. Well, I was kind of wanting to get, after Genital Grinder, I wanted to get something else out pretty soon. I thought the quickest way would be, okay, I'll write to my friend Jason here and we can come up with something. And we just kind of brainstormed on ideas. And one of the big ones was something like Cube, with people waking up somewhere not knowing how they got there. And Jason had this idea for a while about some kind of iconic slasher killer who's set in this walled off city, and we thought, okay, we combine those two ideas and we have something. There was a few months of brainstorming on that, what that world might be like. A lot of things we haven't even had a chance to introduce yet, but I mean, there's a lot of background to both of those books. I think I tallied up the emails talking about it, and we had like a novel's worth of just talking about the stories. That's not even counting just, you know, the bullshit stuff like going on in our personal lives that are in there. I mean, just strictly the books. There was a novel's worth discussion about it. But we were just emailing back and forth and got on the subject of zombies one day, and I think he told this story when you guys interviewed him, where we just said, well, there's too many zombie stories. The world doesn't need another. But I always wanted to do something like Lamberto Bava's Demons, and Lucas had this idea of setting it in like a wrestling event, so that's where it started there. I felt like I knew enough about wrestling that I could go along with that, so that's kind of how that went about. And I met Chris at KillerCon, and we just had this idea of, well, we should work together sometime, and he contacted me a few months after the convention with an idea, and that wound up being the Night Stalkers. So it's sometimes I might have an idea. Sometimes it's a combination of both people's ideas, or sometimes somebody else has it and just wants me along for the ride, I guess. But as for how that's different from how I approach things myself, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell what goes on in my mind sometimes. The books are a pretty good indication of that. But again, it's coming up with the obsession it feels like I'm story that I can do and see through to the end. A lot of times I feel like I have to know the ending to get there. So again, it's just about getting into the mind of that person that I'm writing about and feeling like I'm really invested in what they're going through, and then coming up with the most descriptive ways I can to describe just this hell that they're going to encounter. And obviously I write this stuff a lot better than I talk about it, because I just said descriptive and describe and then like 3 words with each other.
Don't we all?
Yeah. For a while, what word was it, Aaron? What was our fucking word of the day that we had? That on the one episode we said like fucking 20 times.
Oh, shoehorn.
Shoehorn.
Yeah. That's like the dumbest fucking word to say a bunch of times in a row. Like, We're
I
the
don't think
king
I ever
of
said
it.
in my life until that episode. Until you
He kept shoehorning it into every sentence.
Every fucking sentence. By the end of the episode, it was like 10 times we said shoehorn, the most obscure word ever. But it was good. It was good. We
But-
made it through.
But Ryan, that's pretty interesting. Like when you say, because from my experience, I've written like collaborations from character perspectives that sort of alternate. And then the one I did with Dan, those are the only two I've done. And the one I did with Dan was kind of like separate stories, but they sort of interconnect, at different points. So I was really interested in your answer for this, just because I'd never done anything like that. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, so you're saying usually, now obviously it wasn't the same for all of them, but you do about 3,000 words or so and alternate and then edit each other's stuff to kind of, that's sort of, you think, the best method to find that single voice and make it cohesive?
Well, even that process can be different from collaboration to collaboration. Lucas and I didn't really do any kind of major editing after each exchange to make it feel like more like one voice. Chris and I did. With Jason and I, we kind of wait till the book is finished to really do the intense editing. So it's just different with each one. I've done one collaboration like you're talking about with Matt Shaw. It was called 1,000 Severed Dicks. And with that one, we were writing the same character but different perspective. He was writing the first person, and then when it came into my hands, I was doing a third person of it. So that kind of helped it to where it didn't matter if it was one voice.
Yeah, that's cool. That's kind of what me and Matt, actually, we did like first person alternating, like two different main characters, but I found that to be like pretty easy, honestly, as long as you are sort of noting what, the trajectory of the story is for both of them. But you've been incredibly successful about it, and I listened to Pandemonium. I just finished it a couple days ago. And humor is a tough thing to do in writing, I think, like consistently. And I didn't feel like it let up in that book. Like I felt like there was a great amount of like humor and consistently through. And then obviously the awesome kills and everything. So
yeah, Pandemonium was nominated for a Splatterpunk Award too, right?
Correct. Yes.
And Night Stalkers is nominated this year also, right?
Right, yeah. Pandemonium was nominated last year when Wiley Young won with the Magpie Coffin. Then Night Stalkers is this year, so we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, it's great just to be nominated for the stuff. Yeah.
I wish I could wish you luck, but I'm going against you in that category. So I hope you have a fantastic second place finish.
Hey, I got a quick question. You said you wrote the last 30% of Header 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was it intimidating coming on at that stage of the process? Because 70% of the story was already done, so you have to figure out how to finish that last 30%. Was that intimidating for you, or did it just flow out and flow well when you finally did it?
It was intimidating initially, just because it was Edward Lee, it was Header, but he had written this script for it. It was meant to be a movie before it was something he was going to write as a novella.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you look at the script notes, he's even describing how they can depict these scenes that just have this outlandish gore in it without it, everybody getting arrested essentially. But so I was just adapting that. So I didn't actually have to come up with like the big climax or anything. So that took a lot of the pressure off, and it was just a matter of adapting what he'd already written in the screenplay.
Okay.
But it was still initially intimidating when I first started. It was a little slow going until I felt more comfortable with it, and then it didn't take too long to finish it out after that. But yeah, the first day of working, it was a little intimidating.
And how long
I'm
did
sure.
you know Edward Lee at that time?
Since about 1996 is, I guess, when I first started talking to him. So it was almost 20 years by the time he reached out to me and asked me to do that. I remember I was working from home at that time, and I happened to check my personal email then, and my jaw hit the floor, seeing what they're asking for. So my first thought was like, well, there's no way in hell I can do this, and then the second was like, oh, there's no way in hell I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm sure you kind of felt the pressure, and like even though you were still established and were popular, I'm sure you still had probably that kind of a little bit of imposter syndrome, like in the back of your mind, like holy shit, this is Edward Lee, and this is like one of his flagship series, and wrapping it up like that, must have been fucking definitely intimidating. I know I'd be shitting bricks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. If he hadn't included that screenplay, I don't know what I would have possibly come up with. That would have been pretty scary. I would have said yes, but it would have been intense.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, what's the next one?
Well,
I'm supposed to work with Ed again one of these days. We keep talking about it. There's kind of an idea we have just the merest outline of, but maybe we'll actually go forward with that sometime. But that'd be fun.
Yeah.
He's been cranking stuff out lately too. Like he's kind of been behind the scenes, but I know I just picked it up the other day. The new release from Evil Cookie of Minotaurus came out, and it has a bonus. I didn't realize because I have a first edition Necro copy, but I have it in plastic, and it's like sealed up, and I've never read it. It's just sealed in good condition. So when I got this copy of Minotaurus, I noticed it was like double the length, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I realized there was a bonus novella in there. And then I think Kate Trapp said that he's coming back out with, I think they're re-releasing The Pig, and I think he's putting another bonus novella in that as well. So like he's been he's quiet, but he's writing, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, he mentioned the thing about The Pig in one of the last emails I got from him, and maybe he said it was a sequel. I'm not sure, but yeah, he said he was returning to that whole The Pig milieu, which is awesome. I mean, talk about great opening lines. I mean,
that's one of the best.
Yeah, first line of that's about a girl throwing back a shot glass of pig semen.
Yeah.
That's an icebreaker.
another poetic line.
Yeah. Belatedly though, I did want to say I read Left to You, and I thought it was really good. So best of luck to you. Yeah, best of luck to you and the Splatterpunks.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I don't have anything to say. I have no follow up. You got me for the rest of the episode. Now, Carver, you're safe. Everybody, Ryan Harding read one of my books and said he enjoyed it. So, all right, guys, I'm signing off, and I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep.
Yeah, when the Night Stalkers wins the Splatterpunk, I hope that's a good consolation prize, though.
It is. That's the only one I need.
Awesome.
Oh man. Oh God, Laura, what's the next question?
I think Carver. You're next.
Yeah. Ray Howe asks, when approaching a project, what? When approaching a project, do you prefer to have a detailed outline, or are you a pantster? I know you mentioned before you like to know the ending, right? You said you kind of have to know the ending. But
yeah, I feel it is important to kind of know where the story is going to land up, because I struggle sometimes. If I don't know that, then it can become a problem. I had hell of a problem with the story called Temple of Amdusias, which is a King Diamond tribute story, and it took me months to finally crack the code on that one. I kept changing the beginning, and once I figured out the ending to it, it was fine. But yeah, it was a matter of finding the right character and just the right story for that, and then required having to know exactly where that was going to be able to bring that to the finish, because that was just one of those stories. Sometimes for me, if there's a lot of false starts for some stories. Yeah, so that was one of the hard ones that made me think, yeah, maybe I need to step away from short stories for the next 6 or 7 years.
When you're writing like that, and say you get stuck in a place, do you work on multiple projects at one time, or you just focus on that one project and you can't write anything else?
Usually just the one. Usually, yeah, just that one. Or if sometimes like Night Stalkers, I guess I was juggling with something. I don't remember what now. Maybe reincursion edits, or maybe I was writing on I have a collaboration with Brian Smith that I was working on some of what probably around the time of Night Stalkers, and so I have to finish my next part and send it to the other collaborator. And when I do that, then I feel like I can work on something else. But
Gotcha.
primarily, it's one thing at a time. Especially when it comes to short stories, I just see those through to the end before I'll worry about some other project.
Actually, I wanted to ask, and I haven't read it yet, but you wrote I believe it was the finale for the Call Me Hoop series through Godless. How was that writing in somebody else's world and having to stick to some kind of rules in that?
It was a little strange, to be sure. He asked me to do it when there were about, I don't know, maybe 3 novellas in the series, and so I read those, and then like the 4th, 5th were on the way, and he was able to send me those 2, so I kind of had an idea of what the other stories would be like, but it was still a little, it was strange, but it wasn't too uncomfortable. The way I wound up telling the story was a little uncomfortable for me, but that didn't have anything to do with just having to play in somebody else's sandbox or anything like that. It was just I had to write it in third person limited for the part of it, and so that was a challenge, not one I recommend.
Yeah, I always wondered that when we you see that happening with other people and jumping into somebody else's world and their creations. Obviously with the header, you're an Ed Lee fan, you've read it, and you knew what it was leading up to it. And like you said, the screenplay notes were obviously very helpful. But I always wonder about that, trying to write in somebody else's world with defined views and rules and stuff. Like, I'm a huge World of or Warhammer nerd. Like, I love Warhammer 40K, and there's like a ton of different authors in there. I've always thought about how difficult it would be to try to write a story using somebody else's characters. So that's interesting how it was for you.
Yeah, Drew gave me some notes on some things that didn't really pertain to my story, but where the series would eventually go, that were helpful for creating a few of the things that I did. I guess the hardest thing was that the idea that I pitched to him wasn't quite the one I wound up doing. My idea was, okay, let me do a story about this FBI profiler who's a total scumbag. And that is what happens, but there's more going on than that. So it wasn't quite the story I had planned to write. So that took a little dancing around. But gosh, I was fortunately able to knock it out toward the end of the deadline. That's kind of a problem for me. No matter how much time I have, it's something I won't wind up working on it until it's almost too late.
Yeah, that's that can be an issue, definitely working with deadlines. And I think Wes was talking about that on his episode, and fitting in deadlines and trying to, especially when you're doing something like that where Drew is trying to cap it off at a certain amount of time to get the paperback released and to get the whole thing, show some pressure on you there. But obviously you did it, and you were kind of like the headliner at the end of it, so I'm sure it was it's a pretty serious collection of work, so hope it's doing well.
Yeah, those godless faithful seem to enjoy the series, so that's cool.
Yeah,
I've been sitting here trying to think to myself what pantster means, but I got it now. It's a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Since you asked the question, I've been like, pants.
Yeah, that's probably something we should clarify too, though, because people listen to us are
Plotter and pantsers.
Well, it just does it not remind you guys of like when people used to pants each other in high school? Like,
Oh yeah.
just run up behind them, pull his pants down, embarrass them.
Yeah.
I used to have these girls that would run up and pants me every time we played volleyball, man. Every time I'd try to spike the ball, these girls would run up and jerk my damn pants down.
Trying to see Carver's Pike.
That's right.
I wish I could do it that way. There are occasionally some stories that just kind of figure themselves out, but most of them I have to kind of smash them to pieces to find out what it all leads to.
Awesome. All right, we got Christina Pfeiffer asks, you have written novels Night Stalkers, Pandemonium, and short story collection Genital Grinder. Which was your favorite to write? And this is from your number one annoying fan from Alaska, the frozen tundra, Christina Pfeiffer.
Pandemonium was the most fun. Like it was such a fast one, that uncharacteristically fast for me, because some of those collaborations, Reincursion, Reincarnage, those took years. It wasn't really the subject matter so much as just life getting in the way of it. There was a point where I had Reincursion in my possession for over a year without finishing it up to send it back to Jason. So, but Pandemonium, we started toward the end of that year. I want to say it was September maybe, and we had it done by January, I think. So,
Damn.
wow. It's a over 60,000 word book, and I mean it just came fast. You know, anytime I got it from him, I just always knew exactly what I wanted to do with it and how far I wanted to ride before I handed it back to him. And I just sent it back to him one day, and he's like, "Yeah, so I kind of finished the book."
He seems like a really cool dude to work with too, because Lucas is just he seems very easygoing and fun, and obviously he's a very talented writer. So
yeah, Lucas is great. Lucas is great. I had a great time working with him, and it's not impossible. I'd write again with him someday.
Now, I have a question regards to promotion for Pandemonium. Lucas did a very, very classy and sexual video of him shirtless with a bunch of ties wrapped around him and did like a wrestling promo. Why did you not do one as well?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I did not think I could live up to the bar he set the promotions to. There was just no way, man.
It was amazing. Those Walmart George ties wrapped around his arms were just spectacular. And
What do you mean arms? I thought you were talking about those 24-inch pythons, brother.
Pythons, brother. Yeah, Lucas is massive.
Ryan, so you obviously to write that book, you have to be somewhat of a pro wrestling fan, I imagine, right? You said you know enough about it. Do you still watch wrestling occasionally? Did you watch WrestleMania?
No, I had kind of I'd watched it up to about the NWO part of WCW, back to turn of the century, sort of. But beyond that, no, I hadn't kept up with it, not nearly to the extent that Lucas has. Lucas is really the real go-to about all the vernacular and all the wrestlers and all that. I just kind of had a decent idea of things from WWF and WCW or NWA before WCW. So I used to watch it quite a bit back in the 90s and late 80s.
So I actually tried to watch Royal Rumble, and then I had to message Lucas. I said, "Why the fuck is Bad Bunny and why is there like a reggaeton fucking singer in the middle of the ring right now? How the fuck did wrestling get to this? Like, why is this guy in the ring right now?" Like, oh man.
But
yeah.
as far as the language goes, because this is like a question that I had asked Lucas, like, were you apprehensive at all about using the insider language, like for fear that maybe the average reader wouldn't really like connect some of the terminology? Because it's a question I asked myself, because I've sort of delved into that in a short story format. But did you have any apprehension at all about it?
Lucas is the one who used the most of those kind of insider terms, but I felt like from the context, a lot of times you could kind of glean what he was talking about if you didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I was presuming a lot of people had probably at least read Lee and Peelin's book Goon, which had a lot of insider wrestling information in it. So I would say Goon was an influence on the book too.
Yeah, and I think when I talked to Lucas about it, he said, we're creating a world, and it's like you have to have a language for that world too. So like he felt pretty confident in it, and ultimately it's true to the story, I think, too. So I think you guys made the right decision. That's the way to go. But yeah, awesome book for sure.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask my next question because I want to get this over with. So Rain is asking a question on behalf of Matt Shaw, And she wants to know, if you could enjoy me, Matt Shaw, sexually, what position would you have me in?
I mean,
damn it, Rain.
you've
Roll
worked,
Ryan.
Ryan, you've worked with Matt, so it goes without saying that he's been harassing all the interviewers with perverted questions. So don't feel like he's targeting you. He does it to everybody. But
And you have to answer.
Right. Well, maybe, gosh, let's say that not bisexual, but bisectioned position.
Nice.
That's probably the one I can see being the most. Yeah, that would be the most lascivious for me is a total bisection.
There you go. When Matt Shaw comes back from Africa, he'll have to prepare himself.
all right, we got. Yeah, let's just move on from that altogether.
Matt, tormenting us.
Next.
All right, so Spike Creamer, who came to visit us at Scares That Care. Thanks again, Spike.
Oh, so nice.
Oh, some beers too, which is great.
Yeah.
Always appreciated.
Yeah, so he says, if you were stuck on a deserted island with the Written and Read podcast crew and had to resort to cannibalism, who would you eat first and why?
We know the logical answer,
Wait,
but we
no.
want to know your answer.
Well, we're going to take one person out of the equation right now. Do you see how skinny I am?
Yeah, it's just gonna have to be whoever has the thickest love handles. I'm afraid you're gonna have to be bled out for the greater good. We'll do a measurement. We won't have to draw straws. We'll just be drawing love handles and pulling them out. Whoever has the elasticity.
Tell just from my chubby cheeks, I win.
I'll say, you notice how Carver's not laughing.
I'll be dieting starting this week.
Right.
Yeah. I want to look like Roland by the time we get there.
I went out and walked 8 miles today in anticipation of this question.
That's great.
Don't eat. There's no meat on my bones.
Oh, shit.
Come on, Carver, you're up.
All right, Dawn Keat has another question. She asked, if you could spend 24 hours as one of your characters, who would it be and why?
Well, I guess maybe it would be Agent Orange from Reincarnage because he's
shit up.
he's invulnerable, so he can just go off and do whatever, and no matter what's done to him, he'll be back. So
That's awesome.
That's
it's like a super villain.
24 hours
Sure,
of mayhem.
guys. Aaron, who would you be from your one of your stories?
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a thoughtful question, though. She has a,
Yeah.
that's a
Harold,
pretty
just so you
cool-
can eat shit all day.
Maybe that would be kind of cool, you know. No, come on. You know what?
It's a hard
I would-
question.
yeah, it is really hard. Honestly, most of my characters, like, you wouldn't want to be them, I guess. But
About to say the guy yellow.
Right,
So
fucked up characters. Shit,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
do that. Wanna-
Yeah, you don't be Oliver.
like, there's not much happy stuff going on. But
Yeah.
I'll do Harold. Why not? He's fun. You know, I'll eat a shit. Oh,
He's
shit.
fun.
too.
Okay.
What about you, Roland? Come on. Let's just.
Oh, mine is easy. Gwendolyn from Payback as a Witch.
I knew you were gonna
Okay.
pick that.
Shut up! You don't know me. You don't know my life.
Yeah, I do.
What about you, Daniel?
Oh, I would be Talia. Just killing and fucking the whole time. That's like, you can't beat that.
Just want guys driving their dicks into you? Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
All
last
day.
but not least,
Got it. Nailed it.
Carver would be the parasitic head lice from his book Scout.
Just
Yeah, maybe.
Uh,
Fuck, I don't know, man. I'm gonna cheat and go with my dark fantasy series. I'll be Gabe from my Edge of Reflection series. So he gets to cross through the mirror in that world, and that's fucking awesome.
Okay, that's
Damn.
awesome.
Dark,
Yeah.
the dark side of the mirror where there's like no rules and shit over there.
Ooh.
Because I don't want, excuse me, I don't want parasitic head lice or any of that shit.
You're so edgy.
Yeah.
So fucking edgy.
And I don't want to pick the baby from abortion because I do not want to be in.
You don't like spaghetti?
Unless
I don't want to be spawned that ate the spaghetti.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
You're disgusting.
Uh,
We have a guest.
Well, okay, so that's pretty much the reader questions, but we definitely got a few more if that's cool, Ryan.
Sure.
One that I'd like to kind of ask this just to people in general, as far as like author struggles. Like, is there anything that you found like to be a significant challenge in writing that you somehow overcame or sort of continue to work to overcome?
Promotion is still a big thing that I've never quite worked out too well. I don't think I could stand to improve a lot on that.
That's a tricky one. Honestly, I think out of all the people we've asked, that one continues to resurface. Is because it's like there's no set way to figure it out. I think some of it's just luck. Some of it is just like being on social media a lot, which sucks. You know what I mean? Nobody wants, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great interactions and stuff on social media, but who honestly wants to continue to keep checking it? And it's like, as authors, it's almost like we kind of, want to say thank you to everybody for sharing our work and seeing it, but it's like a second job sometimes. It becomes very exhausting.
And it fucking changes so much too, because at one point it was newsletters that were the thing, then it was advertisement that was the thing. And then it was just the Amazon algorithms and beating that. And then it's social media. And it's like, it just fucking comes and goes and just the ebbs and flows of it all. It's just fucking, God, it's aggravating. You know what I mean?
The big thing with social media as well is that there's so many sites now. Like, I'm not a big, I'm not like a tech guy, but I have 4 social media accounts between Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and fucking stupid ass TikTok. But and to constantly have to try to check everything and to respond to people, and it can be daunting. And like you said, Ryan, like the promotion thing is difficult because we don't have one of the big 5 publishers behind us taking ads out and doing this stuff and hunting down reviewers for the New York Times. And a lot of times, our publishers are either us or a 1 or 2 person operation, and they don't have the time or the money to invest. So we have to kind of do it on our own, but definitely something that if there was a fucking formula or anybody knows it, I really wish you would tell us what it is.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. It kind of goes along with Aaron's in a way too, but and we usually ask this too. But what's something that you've learned along the way that you wish you'd known a long time ago, like that?
Use a pen name.
Use a pen name.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm in the same boat as you, Ryan. Like the same boat.
Yeah,
not too many. Really, I've got 3 pen names, and I'm fucking like.
Yeah, I really wish I had that one over for sure.
Can I ask why? Because I don't know why you would prefer to use a pen name as to your real name.
Just if you apply for jobs sometimes and people like look you up or whatever, it can get awkward. It can get awkward.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's
so they book like Genital Grinder.
Yeah, that's something best avoided. So yeah.
Oh well.
Yes, I'm applying for the preschool teacher job.
Ryan Harden.
Genital Grinder.
That's something I wish I'd thought about more back when I started getting published. I guess my first, like I said, Paranet was the first one, but then shortly after that was Partners in Crime, the chapbook with Edward Lee that Necro put out, which was my story Damaged Goods, because Dave Barnett was at that World Horror Con where I read it at the Gross Out. And yeah, if I'd known better at the time, I wouldn't have let my ego dictate, well, I'm just going to use my own name. Who cares?
Well, that's what I was going to say, is a lot of us back in the day, you're like, you know what? I want the fucking world to know what I published. I want to go back to my high school reunion and show all my fucking books and be like, you know what? Suck it. Just like,
I want to show you the tens of dollars I made writing these.
Exactly. All the movies made off of my shit. I want the world to know.
That's right. Check out Genital Grinder. The royalty for last month funded this corsage.
And the cover for Genital Grinder's awesome too. That
so good.
That Deadite cover.
Don't steal my question, Aaron. Daniel, I was about to ask about covers.
Well, we got fucking Carver went mine Carver on us. He's frozen.
Carver's gone.
He's been drinking from that for like 5 minutes. Okay,
Oh, there he is. He's back.
There he is. You're back.
In the hills of West Virginia. The internet runs scared.
General Grinder covers it fits so well, and I mean it was the pre-existing artwork, but it's just I can't imagine it without it for sure.
Now, do you think you would, if Deadeye ever decided to not renew your contract, would you try to take that art with you to another publisher?
I would be curious to see what somebody else did with it. Just the Polish edition of it has a really cool cover too. So.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about. Go ahead, Daniel.
No, I had a full another question. If you want to ask something about this.
Well, just the fact that you mentioned the Polish edition, I was going to ask you. You've had your books translated in Polish and German. Like, have you seen how has that worked out for you? I haven't had anything translated yet.
It was really cool to get Genital Grinder in Poland. There was no, I guess, equivalent for the title in Polish, so it's called Blasphemia over there. They don't have genital grinding in Poland, I guess. But
Step your game up.
Yeah,
2022.
We can show him how it's done.
Yeah. So, Frank Fest is supposed to put Genital Grinder out in Germany. I have not seen a cover for that yet, but I'm really curious to see how that comes out. It's cool. It's cool to have anything come out in another country.
Did you do is that through Dom Haru your
Yes.
your Polish one? Oh, okay, cool.
Right, the Haru or however you pronounce it. Yeah.
I'm probably saying it wrong, honestly. But yeah, they're cool. They do a lot of Ed Lee's stuff too. You know.
Pavel's a cool guy.
Yeah, I got to talk to him too. Hopefully the Slob will be coming out there. But he seems like a really awesome dude. So.
Right.
But Daniel, I'm not gonna.
Let's see, Corpse fan too. So.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Ryan, one of the questions I always ask people because it always fascinates me is when you're getting ready to write, what is your routine? Do you have a routine, or are you just like, you know what, I got 20 minutes to kill, I'm gonna write, or are you an everyday kind of writer, or when the mood strikes you, and how do you go about it?
Not an everyday writer. I haven't written anything this year so far, as a matter of fact. But when I have something that's due, that's when it becomes situation critical, and that's the point where I'm going to try and sit down and however long it takes, try to belt out 1,000 words, ideally. With the Call Me Hoop thing, that I was having to do more than 1,000 just because the deadline was creeping up. So there were days it was more like 1,500, and the last day working on a story where I'm just trying to get it done ahead of the deadline, that's where it's not unheard of for me to do 2,000, 2,500, or 4,000 words or something.
Wow.
But my standard, usually I consider it a good day if I can get 1,000.
So you usually just type, or are you pen and paper?
I type it.
Type it. Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, so I was going to say, it sounds like, because we're all different as writers, obviously, but it sounds like you kind of maybe not like deadlines, but they're motivational to you, and useful in that way.
Yeah, the pressure helps me to, because if I didn't have the pressure, I don't know that I'd be writing any short stories. So just because they tend to be challenging for me, and unless there's something comes up like that New Flesh anthology, that wasn't one I was invited to. All the other anthologies in Transcendental Mutilation, the upcoming collection, I was invited to, but the New Flesh is one that I actually wrote something for rather than being invited, just because I'm such a huge David Cronenberg fan. There was just no way I wasn't going to try to do something for it. But generally, no, it does require the pressure. And that's another good thing about collaborations, is knowing somebody else is relying on me. That motivates me to get up and do more with it. But there's some projects I have that I'm writing on my own, a couple of novellas in progress that I need to get back to, that just keep getting backburned while I work on collaborations that are getting to the finish. I'm actually I'm almost actually in the clear on collaborations. The Brian Smith thing is like the only thing I have active right now.
Yeah, I read that on your Amazon profile. That's really cool. I think that's going to be a brilliant pairing. And I've obviously read about the upcoming collection too. And then you have a splatter western too, right? That you're working on.
Yeah, I have to put the Splatter Western together this year and write that by the end of the year. So I actually intended to do some outlining on it last weekend, and then some things came up where I wasn't able to do it. But hopefully this weekend I'll be able to sit down with that a little bit. And I also plan to kind of do a little planning on the Vaughn and Greg book too. So
that's awesome. How do you like work with Death's Head? I know you have a bunch of books out through them. They seem like they're like I've done some stuff with them. How have your interactions been with them so far?
Yeah, it's been good. I reach out to Jared every so often, and he's good about replying, letting me know what's going on, and showing me the artwork in progress, or giving me the insider info about what's going on with things. So yeah, I enjoy working with Jared and Patrick.
Now, do you have anything you could? Before we move on from Death's Head, though, I figured I'd just mention this real quick. When I put the post up asking about questions today, Patrick Harrison III had a question for you. It's a rather selfish question, in my opinion. He asks, who is cooler, him or Jared? And honestly, like, the banter that came afterward, there was some indication that future books being published may hinge on this answer, from what he was saying.
Well, the coolest person by far associated with Death's Head / Stygian is Jeremy Wagner. The guy's in Broken Hope.
Yeah. There you go.
Brilliant.
There's your answer. True answer right there. Can you tell us anything about the Splatter Western? Like, do you know what number you're going to be, or do you have a title or anything you can share with us, or is it all kind of hush-hush for now?
Not sure about the number that it's going to be. The working title is The Oregon Trail, or The Lucky Ones Got Their Brains Blown Out. That's the full title.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I love the Oregon Trail, that old game too. So amazing. Dysentery.
Dysentery.
Yeah.
I learned about dysentery from that game. I've never heard of it anywhere else besides that fucking game.
Yeah, you learned about dysentery in your childhood from the Oregon Trail. Those were the days.
You know that Roland is so old he actually was on the Oregon Trail?
Yeah.
I don't even know if Roland's a vampire. He's ageless and
I had
gorgeous.
dysentery on the Oregon Trail.
But, I don't have like a whole lot I can tell you about the Oregon Trail, other than it's going to be, I think it's going to be more of a monster story, but the human monsters will be just about as bad as whatever I come up with for the other kind.
Very cool. It's almost like with Patrick's book, The Savage Breed, like the monsters were cool, but the human monsters were obviously despicable, and some really great characters in that book.
Yeah, those are the kind of characters I like to write about the most, the kind of characters that piss people off the most reading about them. Those are the ones I love writing. K-Trap Jones asked me about this on the interview for the hardcover edition of the Night Stalkers. It's like, which characters did you enjoy writing the most in the Night Stalkers? And like the rogues, the people who are just, say anything and do anything for their own gain. Those are the ones I love to write because they have no limits to what they'll do.
Speaking of the Night Stalkers, could I ask you, what did you enjoy most about working with Kristopher Triana on that project?
Well, it was I liked kind of the competition. The competition, trying to come up with like some of the most outlandish gore scenes, and laughing about stuff that just nobody else in the world would think was remotely funny for 2 seconds, and then sending it to the other person knowing they're just going to be dying laughing at just how awful it is. And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It's funny. It's fun. I'm sorry, not to, just to wrap it, but because I asked Chris the same question earlier today, because I wanted to see how it would compare, and he said almost the same thing that you said in the beginning. He said, I enjoyed how we just had fun and let loose. We basically tried to make each other laugh with the carnage we created. He said Ryan's stuff can be just as hilarious as it is horrendous. So.
Yeah, that was the fun of it for sure. I mean, yeah, there were some scenes I was writing that I was like, oh man, this is really this is really low, but I mean, I'm not flinching from doing it. This is what it calls for, so let's go for it. So
it's always awesome when the extreme horror authors collaborate and it turns into the pissing contest of like perversion. You know,
yeah,
it's so fun.
That was the fun of the 65 Stirrup Iron Road collaboration too. Before that went off the rails with the meta stuff, but just the build up to it and coming up with just the most insane scenarios and trying to come up with something that's going to disgust everybody because there's like 8 other people working on the book and trying to stand out with just some over the top scene. That was fun.
Speaking of over the top stuff, is there anything that is taboo that's off limits for you? Doesn't sound like it, but I'm just asking.
I'm probably not ever going to write anything with animals. I don't like to read anything like that, and I know people are just automatically they're not going to engage with it in most cases either. So I mean, why even try to put them through it? It's supposed to be fun, you know. So
Okay.
But I mean, as far as you brought up the groomer before we started recording, and it's like with kids getting killed and that kind of thing. I mean, I've had stuff like that in stories before. I mean, when it comes time to do it, yeah, I will. I won't usually put as much detail into that kind of thing, but yeah. I mean, I'll still use it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I went to a job interview one time, and they were paying pretty much nothing. But it was like I was asked, it was in a medical lab, and she asked me something like, well, would you be bothered by the autopsies of children? And I, came up with whatever response I came up with, and I didn't get the job. I just felt like if I had known I wasn't getting the job, I would have said, not at all. I don't even like children.
I'll just use it as material. Inspiration.
So besides the pen name, picking a pen name, if there's anything else, like what else do you wish that someone had told you when you first started writing? Like besides using a pen name, like is there anything that you wish somebody said, like, hey, or if you can go back in time and tell yourself, hey, young Ryan, do this instead of that, what would you tell yourself?
I guess invent Harry Potter.
Yeah. It's true. She's doing all right for herself.
Yeah. She's not going poor in the next month or so, I don't guess.
No.
Gosh.
No, but that's almost an answer, right? Are you kind of saying like invent a more mainstream character almost, or was that just a joke?
I mean, mostly a joke, but
okay.
I don't know. I mean, I could put together something more mainstream, I guess, if I really wanted to. I've never felt quite that motivated for it. Something I guess would be take like a college education a bit more seriously about finding a career that you're going to be okay with if writing does not work out. Because I mean, I was just totally delusional about what I was going to be able to accomplish as a writer, I think. So when I went to college, it was just like a I'll go ahead and do this, but I mean, I'm going to be a writer one day and just make millions of dollars doing all this stuff. And, it didn't work out that way. And then when it came time to join the working world full time, then I wish I'd had certain credentials, maybe gone into certain industries that would have been better. And, I'm happy where I'm at now, but I mean, I had to go back and do additional education for what I'm doing now. So, I mean, I wish I'd known at the time that it was something I was going to have to rely on more.
Yeah, and that's something that we see a lot of too with, especially newer authors, and, people think that you write one book and you get published by, especially even a small press, that you're making, even thousands of dollars. Some people are not, like they're seeing single digit royalties every month, or maybe if they break $100 a month on royalties, that's a lot of money. Even some big five writers, like there are writers I'm sure that have New York Times bestsellers that are out there that are broke right now because that one book hit and they got some money off of it, and that was it, and the royalties dried up. So stay in school, kids, from Ryan Harding.
It is a grind, a genital grinder, if you will.
It
if
is.
you if you are, but there's something to be said for, pursuing your passions too. And I'm sure to some extent you probably like you said, you have your regrets, but maybe you also at least you tried too, and you have a successful career. You know what I mean? Like I've known your name for over, I'd say kind of a little after Genital Grinder came out, and it's like, you have a lot to be proud of, but I understand it's like the fucking financial aspect of being a writer can definitely be depressing. It's and tough, it's like,
yeah, my advice would be not necessarily just treat it as a hobby, but give yourself some kind of career where you have time to write also, where you don't feel like you're going to be shackled to the job so many hours that writing is just going to seem like one thing too many most days.
Yeah.
And you know what? You just made me think of something too. It's and find that job where you can live inside your head, because there's nothing worse than having a job where you're thinking on a lot of very complex things all day when you could kind of be thinking about your story. You know what I mean? So for me, that was especially towards the last few years of when I was working for the bank, dude. I had almost no time to think during the day, actual thought. Yeah. It was all just cluttered. So I think there's something to be said for being able to live in your head a little bit at work and having a position where, maybe there's some thought that goes into it, but you have those gaps to express your ideas to yourself. I feel like that's really important. You know?
Yeah. I've worked in a job writing and editing for a while, and that was I thought that would be wonderful, but you do it all day long and you come home and you're like, fuck this shit. I don't even want to look at a computer. You can't be creative all day long at work for somebody else and then come home and do it for yourself. You know what I mean? It just burned me out, man. Yeah. I couldn't sit and do that, when I got home. So my eyes were fried in my mind. I just couldn't come up with witty shit to say anymore after doing it for somebody else all day,
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
So you mentioned hobbies, right? I'm going to make the conversation a little lighter. What hobbies do you have outside of writing?
Gosh, well, reading, obviously. You shouldn't be in the writing game if you're not doing a lot of reading. So that's a big one for me. Watch a lot of movies. I have probably thousands of them. Have thousands of CDs. So I love CDs. I love movies. Play games every so often.
Okay. What's one of your favorite movies that you can watch over and over, no matter how many times you've seen it?
Some of those Friday the 13th almost every year.
Oh, nice. Did you like the Jason? What is it? That's Freddy. I'm sorry. No, that is Jason. Jason Goes to Hell.
That's not one I watch every year. That's I'll watch that one every couple years or so. Yeah. But I do think it's entertaining. I think it has the best line in the series about. It's what do you think of when you think of Jason Voorhees? And he says that thing about think of a girl in a pink dress.
Yeah. I remember that line. Nice.
I actually liked the remake that they did, man. I didn't like it the first time I saw it, and then I rewatched it again last year or something, and I was like, this is actually not that bad.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's one of the ones I do try to watch most years, but yeah, so I said that. There's a lot of slashers and stuff in October generally that I'll try to watch every year. Even movies like The Innocents, I try to watch every Halloween, from the one from the 1950s, or maybe that was early 60s.
You ever seen this great movie called Trick or Treat? It's really good.
Fucking awesome.
Daniel's favorite movie.
Yeah. Do you like Hatchet or Terrifier better? Real.
I guess I'm going to lean toward Hatchet, but I do actually like Terrifier though.
Do you is your disdain or somewhat disdain for Jason Goes to Hell, is that because you feel robbed of the presence of Jason in that movie?
That is a hard thing to get over. I think it doesn't go down as easy as part 5 with the
Imposter.
fake imposter Jason, just because it's such a unapologetically sleazy movie, and I always wish we'd gotten like the uncut version of it. That would have been amazing, I think. But it's still very much a Friday the 13th movie, whereas Jason Goes to Hell feels more like the hidden.
Jason X was pretty good too. A lot of people didn't like that one. I liked it.
Because the acting was just so bad in it, though. It's hard to watch it.
But that's the charm of a lot of these movies. That's the charm of it. Like you just mentioned the 5th one with the farm with all the kids, and I mean, oh my god, like that stuff is fucking incredible to me.
Like acting is bad, but like their slasher movie bad, but for some reason Jason X is like bad. It's like porno movie bad. Like when you're watching it, it's almost like they just went out and purposely found the worst acting they could and just.
Yeah.
I don't remember what number it is, but the one with Tina, the girl who's like psychic, I think that's one of my favorite ones, because I think that's the one, correct me if I'm wrong, where he kills the girl with the fucking noisemaker through the eye. Is that the movie where he kills it? Yeah. And I think is that 7? Okay, that's I think that's probably my favorite one. And does he beat the girl in the sleeping bag into the tree in that one as well?
Yeah, that was 7.
Phenomenal. Cinematic gold.
That was kind of the gateway drug for me with horror. As a matter of fact, that was actually the movie that made me want to be a writer, if you can believe that.
Which one?
Part 7, because the first one I saw was part 4. It was like on Cinemax. They were showing a double feature of Friday the 13th 4 and A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and so I mean they both freaked me the hell out. I mean, in one respect I liked them, in the other, I could barely sleep. But so I wasn't sure if the whole horror thing was for me. But then like several months later, a friend got like an early copy of Friday the 13th 7 on video, and I watched it. And I mean, I just had a great time with it. So somehow it got in my head. It's like somebody had to write this. Maybe I should be a writer, and that's something I could do right now. So that's why I started writing, because there wasn't anything holding me back. All you needed was pen and paper, really.
Yeah. One last Jason reference. What did you think about Jason versus Freddy?
Things about it I like. I think there was a better movie in there to be made, but I mean, at the same time, there were a lot of ideas that they pitched that would have been a lot worse. So I think it came out all right compared to what it could have been.
Yeah, it could have been trash, but it was okay.
Yeah, I've got that book, Slash of the Titans. I haven't read it yet, but I've got it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It goes through like all this stuff, and there were a lot of ideas that are just make you think, what the hell were you thinking? But like there was one that's like Jason is on trial for murder, and the movie's like a court drama essentially. Court drama that at the very end of it, like Jason and Freddy end up battling in hell. It's like, oh wow, thanks, nice payoff. But
it's like John Grisham represents Freddy.
I think like if they should put Loomis as the judge in the Jason court show, he would be like perfect for that, dude.
That'd be awesome.
Wait, but we can't. I have one more Jason thing now, though, real quick, just because we're talking about it. Now I'm getting all geeked up. But I love Jason Takes Manhattan. Does anybody? I know a lot of people. People hate that movie, but I love the fucking thing on the boat too. Like they're like, oh, he's not even in Manhattan for most of this movie, but then I'm like, man, but the boat was so fun. And then when he does get to Manhattan, I mean, you get the sewer sludge and toxic waste, everything. What did you think of that one, Ryan? What is that? Does that hold up for you?
I watched all of them. I mean, but 8 is one of the ones that's like I need a break of 2 or 3 years between.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I had this poster of that though that I got from the video store. That I mean, it was like not quite life size, but I mean, it covered like almost my entire door. I wish I still had it.
Oh wow, that's cool.
But I mean, it had Jason on it, and it said, the big apples and big trouble on it.
A fucking great tagline.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. But Yeah, I mean, I just threw Friday the 13th out there when you asked about movies I could watch over and over, just
Yeah.
because that tends to be an October thing, and there's certain movies I try to watch every October. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I'll watch again. I mean, I love David Lynch movies. I love David.
Oh man, Eraserhead.
Yeah.
That movie freaks me the fuck out. I'm sorry, I cannot take that movie. That little baby? No.
You love the
Roland's
babies,
talking
Roland.
about
Come on.
babies.
No.
It's with him and baby.
I was living in Los Angeles, and I don't know what channel it was on, but I'm sitting there at night. I didn't know what it was. I had never seen it before. I'm watching it, and when that little thing flashes across the screen, it had little pot marks all over his body. I was like, I'm done. No. So I turned it off, and it was it.
Only in Los Angeles would you see that just on TV. That's awesome.
I don't remember that. Yeah, but I love that movie.
It was like prime time. It was like 5 p.m.
Well, we're for time. We still got a little bit of time, but we kind of wanted to wrap. We usually have one question that I like to ask people when we wrap, and then like maybe just hear a little bit about, where people can find your work and things of that nature. But I would like to ask, like, when it's all said and done, when death is looming over you at the ripened age of however old, and it's it's coming, you can feel it, and what is it going to take for you to feel like good about your career, like writing wise, like where you've reached, is there a certain goal that you want to hit, or like we've got a variety of answers, but it's just interesting to hear each different person's take.
I can have some kind of work that always gets brought up with like the ones you expect to see, like The Big Head or The Girl Next Door or Survivor, or some of those seminal works, some figuratively and literally seminal. I think that would be really cool. I don't think I'm written something. Genital Grinder is kind of a minor one that people bring up now and then, but I think there's still some room to go before I get to that point. I think maybe Chris's Full Brutal might join that pantheon, but I'm hoping to get something that's considered like an all-time subgenre classic. Anytime anybody ever asks for some recommendations in that genre for somebody who hasn't read a lot, that's one they'll be bringing up. That would be pretty cool. And I mean, I'll definitely take more Splatterpunks if I can get them.
Just not this year.
That's all. No, that's a great answer though. That's like an answer I think a lot of us could relate to. Just to have that one book that everybody's kind of like that. It always comes up. That's cool. I think you might, like you said, I think you might even have some stuff that could be considered that. So.
You know what I will say though, Ryan, for you, and not to sound like a fucking complete, loser about this, but I think what a lot of people will remember is, what you've done for like the up and comers, like the indie horror. Like you share a lot of people's stuff, and you don't have to. You read a lot of people's stuff. You comment. We never see you fighting online with people. You conduct yourself professionally, and I think people will remember that about you, especially. I mean, the work obviously, speaks for itself, but your character, I think, speaks more to, what you'll leave behind, But that's what I think. I mean, obviously your books like Genital Grinder is one I've seen recommended a lot, and obviously it's for a reason. Pandemonium has been out there for a while, and Night Stalkers, but I think your character is what people will really, really take to heart.
Nice.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. My rent's going up next year. I'll see if they'll take my character for payment there.
I hope. I truly hope they do, because once you lose in the Splatterpunk Awards, you're gonna have to hang your head in shame. There will be no four people.
So I have plenty of practice at the whole shame thing. I appreciate you saying that. It does mean a lot, and there's a lot of negativity in the genre sometimes, so I just try not to feed into that.
Don't feed the trolls.
Right. It's better to support people and just because it's hard to how hard it is to break in and get people to read what you're doing. So it's And yeah, I learned that from Edward Lee. You try to help newer writers and just be cool to people. And if there's people out there who don't like your work, you just kind of ignore it. Just focus on the ones who do like it.
Well, speaking of supporting people, we always try to highlight, and you've seen the show before, we always try to highlight an author, one of somebody that we like, one of our peers, somebody new and up and coming. So we'll turn the floor over to you. Can you give us somebody that all of our listeners and watchers should be reading that maybe they don't know about?
I'm going to nominate Jonathan Butcher, who John's a friend of mine, and I think beyond just writing stuff that's really nasty, like What Good Girls Do, and his latest book, Chocolate Man, which is just off 100 different kinds of disgusting, but it's coming up with the graphic content is one thing, but I think he's just a phenomenal writer, and I think that's the most important thing. And so you hear the concept about a book like Chocolate Man, and you just couldn't possibly fathom in a million years just how expertly written it is, not to mention just how far he can really take that concept. There's so many parts in that book that just had me guffawing reading it in my car or whatever on lunch break. But he's somebody that people should be reading. He only has a few books out so far, so it's a good time to get into him on the ground floor, essentially.
Yeah, and he's such a nice guy too.
Super nice.
And I know he put up a post not too long ago that I think he was I don't know what the right wording is to use here. He was concerned, maybe, I guess, that some people were not reading Chocolate Man, I guess, because of the cover or something like that, and that he just expressed some concerns and stuff that maybe some people weren't giving it a shot because of the cover and stuff like that. And like you're saying, it is very well written, and there seems to be much more of a story there than one might think just from the cover alone or something like that. So, I think people should really give it a shot and give it a chance and read Jonathan's work.
Oh yeah, and he it's funny you mention him too, because I don't think you're the only one that feels that way, and I think he's an awesome guy too. I've got to connect with him a few times. Super great. And Chris Triana, actually, I think it was on our Splatterpunk panel, brought him up.
Yeah,
and he was talking about What Good Girls Do, and like how that he thought that was like a newer book that people should check out. So, I mean, high praise from like people in this genre that are, like yourself and Chris, that are just like staples of the genre and very well respected. So, the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, he narrated the short story of the Chocolate Man, and he sent it to me a while ago, and I listened to it. And Ryan, like you said, like you wouldn't think when you hear the concept of it, you're like, oh, this is going to be just gross, but it was fucking violent. It was brutal, and I haven't read the full-length novel yet, but the short story itself was really, really well done, to the point where, it was, you got over the fact that it was like a shit demon almost, or this, this weird monster kind of thing, and just the writing stood for itself.
And it's like a full-length novel too, isn't it? Like a 300-page book or something like that. It's not.
Yeah. Because it started off with a short story, and I think that was the kind of like the jumping point for it. And then he wrote a full-length novel on it, and and then he did an awesome promo where he was covered in shit, and he was like, it had like a toilet, It's classic. Not as good as Lucas Mangum's with the ties tying around his arms, but it's pretty good though.
It was its own flavor of brilliance.
It was.
Brilliant, yeah.
Awesome.
So everybody read Jonathan Butcher, everybody.
Check out Jonathan Butcher, and I know his stuff's on Amazon. Is he on Godless too? Does anybody know?
Sure. I think so. He at least has a short story on there, I think.
Yeah. So definitely.
In October, he was one of the people who had a story go up. So.
Okay. So yeah, Godless and Amazon, guys, for Jonathan Butcher. He gets thumbs up all around, so that's awesome. And if we could, it's been awesome talking to you, Ryan. Like, we've had a great time. We really appreciate you taking so much time with us too. And can you maybe just tell folks where they can find your work, and if you have anything that you want to promote coming up?
Yeah, they can. The stuff's on Amazon and it's on Godless too. Those are the best places to get my work. I'm going to hopefully be getting some copies soon that I'm going to have Jason Taverner sign Reincarnage and Reincursion, get Lucas to sign Pandemonium. So hopefully soon I'll have copies of that I can offer everybody. There's just been a long shipping delay on that for whatever reason. But Amazon and Godless are the best places to get to my work. And you can find me on Facebook and also Twitter. The Twitter handle is NecroAF, Necro as fuck.
What's coming up in the future? You said you had a new collection coming out. You want to plug that? Maybe give us a date, maybe when it comes out.
We are hoping to get it's Transcendental Mutilation. It will be out through Death's Head Press, and we are hoping that it will be out June. I said it would be really cool if we could get it out before KillerCon. So that's ideally what will happen. It is the follow-up to Genital Grinder 10 years later. Finally, a work by myself. It's not just a collaboration. And it'll be close to about, I think it's like 66,000 words. So, yeah, so it's like a full-length novel of short stories, and it's a lot of the stuff I've written since Genital Grinder. So stories like The Corpse Fucker Blues, The Secret Eater, Angel Bait, Junk, Divine Red. So almost all of that stuff will be in this collection.
Awesome. That's great, man. Well, it's certainly been a pleasure. You know, if anytime in the future you want to come on or whatever, feel free to reach out to us. And we'll post up your stuff. I'll try to add that, like your links and stuff, when we post the episode too.
Was going to have a highlight for a reader too.
Yes.
Yeah. If you got a reader recognition, we'd love to hear.
Oh, that's right. Fuck.
Aaron
fucking blew that. God damn it.
It's just fucking Ryan Harding, and you blew it.
God damn it.
Damn it,
How
Aaron.
embarrassing.
I always
Now
knew I'd
Ryan's
fuck
gonna
it up.
leave. He's gonna tell everybody a bunch of shit about us.
Aaron, you're off the show. Oh wait,
Fuck her
Aaron
off.
makes the show.
Yeah, Aaron's the one that records it.
Yeah.
Tell everybody we're a
Sorry,
bunch
you're
of
on
You
the
could
show.
do it without me, though. I've clearly fucking...
All right, guys, shut up. Ryan's gonna talk.
Make yourself indispensable, so that they got to deal with it even when you don't quite get it all right. I'm going to highlight Christina Pfeiffer from Mothers of Mayhem, because she just read Genital Grinder. She's in the process of reading Transcendental Mutilation, but I was really impressed with how prepared she came with their interview with Chandler Morrison, and she had her colored tabs and all his books, and I was like, well, I want to see if I can get her reading Transcendental Mutilation. So she read Genital Grinder and sent me some messages with these great insights to it. It's just really cool. Picked up on a lot of the hidden things in it, and so wanted to be sure and highlight her with my opportunity on here. And she's reading a lot of people, doing a lot of reviews, so she's a great asset to the hardcore extreme community for sure.
Oh, yeah, she's awesome.
She's awesome. So
yeah, she's been...
She couldn't make it to Scares That Care because obviously she lives in fucking Alaska. But Marion, her counterpart on Mothers of Mayhem, had a cardboard cutout of her face that she carried around with her throughout the entire time. But Christina is awesome. She's read, I think, just about all of our stuff. She's a super, super supporter of extreme horror, of everybody, and that's a really good person to highlight, because she definitely deserves it. And I hope she enjoys your new stuff. And it'd be nice to have you on there in their show, because I'd like to see you interact with Marion, because she's very outgoing. So I think you'll really like talking with her. She's so much fun. We got to meet her at
fun.
Scares.
Yeah.
We got to meet her at Scares That Care.
We want to see you match her energy, Ryan.
I sat next to her during Jeff Strand's reading, and Jeff Strand is hilarious, and his reading was excellent, and Marion was just hilarious the entire time. So it was great. But yes, Christina, thank you. We appreciate it. Ryan obviously appreciates it, and we all look forward to hearing what you think about his new book. And I know it's probably gonna be badass.
Well, it's interesting that she made that appearance as a head on a stick. I guess we call it the Edmund Kemper.
Yeah.
That's
Mom's
great.
head around.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, and I want to just thank her real quick too, because she's reviewed a bunch of my stuff, been really nice with that. She's defended me a couple times too, and like people have attacked me, which I won't defend myself. So thank you for someone else defending me.
Yeah.
She's just really cool. She's just very she gets extreme horror, you know what I mean, and like she knows what we're trying to do, and she's very supportive. So thank you, Christina. Even though I almost fucked up the whole thing and cut this segment out.
Oh my god.
It's embarrassing.
Well, again, I
Take my trapper keeper and go.
Again, I appreciate
Buddy
it.
Carver.
I had a great time talking to you, getting everybody's questions. It's nice to know there was that much interest. It wasn't just like 2 questions and then you guys having to
No,
improvise.
definitely people were excited, and it's cool too because there were a couple people that weren't aware of your work too, so I think that was cool too to suggest the book for them, and then but there were definitely quite a few that were excited that you were coming on, so we're just really grateful, and hopefully great success to you in the future, and good luck with your splatter western, your collab with Brian Smith, awesome. And the collection, of course. But thanks, everyone. Go
Your
ahead.
German version.
Yes, the Germans.
Scoop. Yeah.
All right, so we'll sign out here again, guys. My name's Aaron Beauregard. You can find my work on Amazon, or I'm going to be, probably by the time this comes out, I'll be very close to launching my website, abhorror.com, like the first 2 letters of my name. First and last, AB Horror. And that's going to have merchandise, signed copies, all different stuff. Eventually I'll get to digital products, I think, but kind of to begin with, it'll be like apparel, merchandise, and signed copies. But as far as like interactions with readers, none of that changes. You guys can always still hit me up directly. But I'll just be processing the orders via that avenue, so Uncle Sam doesn't bend me over. Which, coming up with tax deadline, I'm getting fucking bent real hard these last couple days, guys. Yeah. So Dan.
Dan J. Volpe. Obviously, I'm on Amazon as well, and like Aaron, I'm feeling the long dick of the law with the taxes, so I will be launching my own store as well, probably around the same time as him. So. Be on the lookout for that. I will definitely be posting about it. So find me on all the social media sites and send me a message if you want. If you want me to interact with you and be an asshole, I can do that as well. So Roland Bursey.
Roland Bursey Jr., guys. You can find my stuff on Amazon. Send me a message on Facebook. You can visit my website, www.rolandburseyjr.com. I don't know why I have a website, but I do. And Carver Pike.
Yeah, I'm everywhere as Carver Pike. Remember, Faces of Beth is... Sorry, my voice is all gone. I'm sick. But remember, Faces of Beth is out now on Amazon. And follow me on YouTube at First Chapter Freak Show. That's my YouTube show, so watch me there. And, that's about it.
Carver, who did the introduction of Faces of Beth? You want to say anything about that?
Yes, of course. Brian Keene did the introduction to Faces of Beth. And you don't want to miss that. That is fucking phenomenal.
Huge.
He is a gentleman, and it was amazing, man. He's been posting little things about... What's that?
I was going to recommend waiting to upload this episode until after you get it in hand, because after the Trapper Keeper revelation, I don't know if it's still going to be...
Yo.
Ryan Harden shitting on you, Carver. That's awesome.
Oh, I'm sure Brian Keene had a Trapper Keeper at one point. Did they have Everybody had a Trapper Keeper. Come on.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, don't forget, join our, if you'd like to discuss what you heard with Ryan or any of our other guests, feel free to jump into the Written in Red Facebook group. There's a lot of great discussion and dialogue, and You know, a lot of our listeners and viewers actually asked a bunch of the questions for Ryan today. So if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely join up. So, you know, we post these usually a day or so before we record. And then you got, you know, opportunity to ask questions. Or you can email writteninredpodcast@gmail.com.
There you go, buddy. You got it right. I think it's 2 shows in a row you got it right.
It is.
It's just I
I'm
needed
so
some
happy.
reps, you know. But,
You need a gold star.
and then for those who like the video, you know, please subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any updates. We really appreciate it. We had a lot of fun at Scares the Care again, and just a reminder, we're definitely planning on doing like a full episode to sort of recap that and just all the great life-changing experiences we had there, and I think it's going to be really fun. So thanks again, Ryan. We really appreciate you, and for everybody else, until next time, keep it 100% horror!